So welcome everybody to the Art of Inner Power. In this episode, I'm going to be introducing you to Dinesh Kumar. Dinesh is an experienced martial artist with over 15 years experience, a degree qualified practitioner of myotherapy, and the creator of Lifeforce Mastery in 7 Days, a course for learning the principles of how to master life force energy. Thanks for your time today, Dinesh, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Just a little bit of a correction. We've changed the URL to Lifeforce Mastery. So it's not in 7 days anymore, because originally I had the course to be a lot shorter, but then I kept going. So it's more than 7 days, let's put it that way. So it's lifeforce.org.
Sure. We'll end up putting all the links in the description at the end where people can contact you.
No problem.
So awesome. So today's topic is life force mastery and exploring life force, energy cultivation, and the benefits to martial arts and life. So for a little bit of introduction to people, I came across Dinesh through wanting to learn how to get in touch with life force energy, working with chi, prana, and I'd been on this journey for a good 20 years, and I've done a lot of practices, but I literally had no what I call physical results. And through some teachers online, I came across Dinesh, and I actually got into his course, Life Force Mastery, and I was actually blown away by the benefits that I've got and the teachings that are involved. So that's why I've got Dinesh on here today to just give us a little bit more of an insight on his background experience with this sort of thing. So I'd like to just start with, Dinesh, how did you become interested in energy cultivation?
Well, ever since I was a teen, I was always looking for something beyond what we perceive. And like yourself, I've spent a lot of years searching and trying different things and no real results. But about 3 years ago, that's when I came across Mark Rossman and watching his YouTube videos, everything just started making sense. The way he was describing things and the practices straight away started getting results. So essentially, I need to go see this person in person, and learn from him. So I got the opportunity to go do a workshop with him, and then he gave me the opportunity to train with him full time for a year. And that year completely transformed my life. And it was after that I came back and tried to teach this to other people, and with a lot of success. So because it's actually, once you understand the principles of how all of this stuff works, it's very simple. It's not difficult. And what I was able to achieve in a year of dedicated practice, people can do that. It's no longer mystical or magical or anything like that. Once you understand the causation chain of how things work, and you go from the top down, instead of trying to figure out from form, it's quite simple. The problem is people get stuck in form, which is the same problem I had. For example, qigong practice, like standing practice in different forms and stuff. It doesn't make any logical sense to you hold this position for, I don't know, a decade or something, and then something will start happening. There's no logic behind it. But if you understand how energy works and you go to the principles how these things work, it's easy. People can start feeling and cultivating energy in a matter of weeks. It's not difficult.
Brilliant. So you said your teacher was Mark Rossman, Mark Rossman.
Mark Rossman, yes.
And what's Mark's experience with all this sort of stuff?
Oh, Mark's I've been looking for teachers in this field for a long time. And Mark is up there, he's the best I've come across in terms of teachability and experience as well. He's been doing this stuff for 30 years. So his main frame of work is based on Franz Bardon's books, Initiation to Hermetics, and the other 2 books. So he's overlaid those principles onto qigong, tai chi, and other energy work, and it's a brilliant model what he's created, and he's able to reproduce it. That's what makes it scientific. He's able to reproduce it with all his students, and pretty much most of his students are able to do what he does. Maybe not to his level, but to a very high degree that you don't normally see around the world. So it's definitely a system that works.
And how long have you been practicing this now?
So I came across Mark Rossman in 2020, started 2020 when COVID hit. And that's when, in Australia, as you know, especially in Melbourne, the lockdowns and stuff, I had to close my business down. I'm like, okay, freed up time, so I'll go into what I was passionate about. And that's when I came across his videos. So I started practicing ever since then. And in 2021, I went to go see Mark Rossman. And yeah, and then after that, stayed there in Mexico for 6 months, and then we moved to Thailand for 6 months, and we trained full time, like 10 to 12 hours a day. And I learned a lot. Like I learned more in that 1 year than my whole life. It was incredible.
Fantastic. So can you briefly explain the concept of life force energy and its
Mhm.
distinguishing features?
Yeah. So if we look at the easiest way to understand this is understanding a little bit of quantum mechanics and what the conclusions they've come to. So everything is surrounded by a life force, so electromagnetic energy. It's got a field of electromagnetic energy. So the main thing is becoming aware of this. And the easiest way to become aware of this is I've made a video of building the ball, feeling the electromagnetic energy between your hands. That's the start of it. That's the entry level. So once you're able to sense this outside of your body, you're able to perceive this outside of your body, then you know what to look for. And then you start to look at the qualities of the magnetic and electric qualities it has, and like all the different functions it can do. So the main thing is building sensitivity to it. Understanding comes through practice, like reading about it and like getting that sort of understanding is more an intellectual property. We want to cultivate the practice and get the understanding through how these energies work, right? And that's based on sensitivity. You increase sensitivity, you'll understand more. It's as simple as that. We understand everything in the physical world because of our five senses. We're able to interpret it because we're able to sense and perceive something. It's no different when it comes to this, but it's more of a subtle energy. So your awareness and concentration have to be developed so you can perceive life force, which is basically electromagnetic energy and field that's around everything.
So when you were studying and learning, you said you were training up to 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
What was your typical routine and what sort of practices were involved?
So like initially when we first started, like he said, Sifu Mark Rossman recommended that we do like have our awareness in the vital field, life force field, for at least like the whole day, like 12 hours, sunrise to sunset. So that's what I did. So you integrate into whatever you're doing. So when I was walking around in Mexico, I was just having my mind out and paying attention to life force. And when you built a critical mass of this, then it becomes easy to tune your mind to that frequency. So that was the first stage. And then it's about seeing how we're going to use and utilize this and apply our will through the life force. And this is where we did like Far Jin training to see how we can move our partner with life force energy, and like releasing the layers from the physical push to more of a fascial stretch, which conducts more energy, and then going more and more empty. And that's predominantly what the practice was about. And there was a lot of meditation as well. So that's pretty much that covered the whole day. So there's a lot of different types of meditation and a lot of high level practices as well that we started integrating. And that took up pretty much the whole day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And obviously you were training with Mark pretty regularly. I wonder if you could share an interesting moment or teaching story when you were working with Mark?
Oh, well, there's so many. there's so many, but like I think one of the biggest takeaways from me, apart from the like the direct transmissions that you get from him, is his ability to teach in a way where you come to knowing yourself as if you figured it out. And that's the benefit of transmissions. Like it wasn't so much A to B, it was more he produces the insight in yourself where you have a feeling that you figured it out, which is a brilliant way to teach. It's like the most efficient way to teach. And that's what I try to incorporate with my students as well. Because that if it's always from the teacher to the student, then the student will always be reliant on the teacher, right? But if you're able to, because everyone has this, if you're able to awaken the insight mind of the student, then they start to figure out the puzzle themselves, which is the best way to learn. And the way we do this is focusing on the principles. Focus on the principles in the process rather than forms and techniques and such. You'll get it much faster. But in terms of experience, he's done some MT4 stuff on me, which is very wild. Like one of the things that I felt when he did the field effect is I felt like my consciousness disappeared for a split second and appeared somewhere else. It felt like I teleported somewhere else, and I couldn't, I had to reflect back a few times to understand what happened then. And there's been a few occasions like that. So yeah, it was a mind-blowing experience. There's a lot of different experiences, which, you know, I can't really articulate.
Yeah. And others, as you said before, that there's a transmission, which is a very important part of it. And
Yeah.
the transmission often seems quite mystical to people, but
Mhm.
really it's the teacher almost is allowing you to feel what you need to feel and giving you that sense of what you
Yeah.
need to achieve, right?
Yeah. So to an analogy would be, say, if you're able to see something someone else isn't able to see, and then you just point to them, like, look over there, and they know what to pay attention to now. It's the same sort of thing. So a transmission is because you've worked with Lifeforce and Qi and so on, and you can produce that feeling in the person. So now they know what to pay attention to. Otherwise, they're kind of going in blind. They don't know what to look for, right? That's basically what a transmission is. So, for example, when I'm working with my students and they're struggling to feel energy, I'm like, okay, start building the ball, and then I'm directly transmitting the energy to them, so they have they know what to pay attention to. They're like, oh, I feel it. Okay, now pay more attention to it. And then as you pay more and more attention to it, it becomes easier to access until you build a critical mass where you just think about it and it's there, right? It's just like anything. The rules don't really change in terms of like, say, for example, thought. When you maintain focus on a thought, it starts to build energy. It starts to build a story, and, like, you know, it starts to accumulate, and then it gives you an urge to act. It's the same sort of thing. When you maintain focus on energy, it starts to come into form, and you'll start to see how it's changes your whole body and transforms your perception. And there's a lot of benefits in just building awareness. And like, as soon as people do this entry level practice, the insight mind kicks in and things start happening. And that's why it's metaphysical. Like, in the physical form, you're subject to time and space, right? But in the mental, you're released of time. In the astral, you're released. In the mental, you're released of space. In the astral, you're released of time. So you can get to skill levels much faster doing it this way. But if you're stuck in form, it'll take years, right? So that's the main benefit. So what my suggestion for people is, maintain your awareness in the energy field around you, and maintain your awareness in the environment, the energy. Like, if you do that, everything will start falling into place. It's all based on perception.
Right. So I'd just like to ask you a little bit about the underlying principles and concepts behind these techniques. Like, what's the role of relaxation, breath control, and body alignment in this practice?
Right. So the main thing is the relaxation quality, which in the Tao system they refer to as song. I like that description because it kind of, like, even though I'm not, I don't know the cultural meaning of it, but it helps me to understand more of what this relaxation quality is. So it's not a limpness. A lot of people mistake for, like, you know, when they say relax, they go limp. It's not that. You're staying radiant, but you're relaxing. The first layer is you're relaxing the muscle and converting it to fascia, right? So where there's a energy efficiency for you to maintain structure, and you focus on that relaxation quality, and you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until you're able to feel this relaxation, just like you feel life force outside of your body. And once you maintain your focus on this relaxation, that gives you a deeper perception on many different things. It's basically alchemy. You're transforming your perception from one state, from the physical state, to energy. And then you're going up the vibrational scale into more subtler energies of creation. So relaxation is one of the key aspects in terms of getting this whole process. So we have to pay a lot of attention to how this works. And it's not just relaxing the body, it's relaxing the mind into the feeling. When you relax the mind into the feeling of life force, you will feel more life force. And the feeling of life force starts to change. It becomes more refined. It becomes more silky. At the beginning, it might be very raw and like it's got a lot of jitteriness to it. but you keep relaxing into the feeling, it becomes very silky and smooth. And then eventually it turns into astral or chi, where the density of the energy becomes very thick and slow. And you keep relaxing that. Now you're going into the mental, where there's an expanded space. Your mind just goes outward. And you keep relaxing and you go into the higher states of consciousness. So relaxation, or the sun quality, is very, very important. And it's not difficult. It's very, very simple. It's just keep your mind outside of the body and keep relaxing your mind into the frequency that you're working with, and you'll get more and more information. And there's the intuitive part of you will guide you on how to do it. So rather than being focused on technique, the process and the principle is the key, right? Understand the principles and understand the process. And if you stick to that formula, you can't fail, right? Techniques kind of hold the mind, contract the mind in the form. So you're not going to learn this efficiently through techniques. It'll take too long to learn it through physical form. You have to understand the nature of the mind to understand all of this stuff.
Now, initially, when you're starting this life force practice, it is important to get a correct posture to allow the person to feel that life force. So how does the posture help someone initially feel that life force energy?
So if we break this down from like the physical, astral, and mental, the physical is like, what's the optimal position for the physical body to become sensitive to energy? It's basically the right alignment to gravity. So if your posture is like slumped forward, your muscles are contracting and working against gravity. But if you align yourself to the gravitational pull, which is straight down, and it's predominantly the spine more than anything else, and you don't feel the stress of gravity, then your mind is able to relax out. So the key is getting the mind outside of the body. So the physical posture is to make that efficient, but it's not absolutely necessary. Some people they just have a natural open mental space, and they can be in a limp position and still be sensitive to energy. But when we're cultivating power, this is where you need a efficiency of body mechanics, right? But sensitivity is, you just need an open mental space, relax your mind out. And some people have this naturally. And those are the people that are more sensitive to energy. But when we're trying to affect form, this is where body alignment is important at the beginning. And once you've fused the mind to the feeling, and you become the life force itself, then the life force guides your posture. So there's no rigidity in, I have to maintain this position or anything like that. The life force fuels the posture. And that's what we need to get to. When we get to that place, then the mind is able to relax out while you're maintaining an efficiency in posture and position, because the life force aligns all the joints and the tendons and fascia into the most efficient way for the energy to conduct through the body.
So we could say that the structure's initially helping a person, as you said, align their body, allowing everything to flow smoothly. Mm-hmm. So then they can actually connect those mind and the breath and the relaxation all together.
Yeah.
And then once you've found that feeling, mm-hmm. you don't need to rely on the structure as much.
No, because the life force fuels the structure. Because if your mind is paid, say, 80% of its awareness into the life force field, then the life force will animate the structure itself. So, because if you're always having to be mindful of your posture, then you're not being mindful of energy, right? So, being mindful of energy will correct your posture. In whether you're doing standing practice or sitting practice, or even walking, jogging, whatever methods you're using, if your mind is out in the field of life force, then there'll be an efficiency in your body alignment.
Excellent. So over this time, you've been training since about 2021. What challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them due to this whole life force training?
I think the main challenges is myself. So when I went into this, I was quite skeptical because it challenges your reality. Essentially, like you grow up like thinking, okay, this is what reality is based on, like everything that's been presented to us, and then someone challenges that. the survival mechanism kicks in, and this is basically the ego, the astral body, where it challenges the identity. So it's about letting that go. As soon as you're able to let that go, then the whole process becomes a lot easier, because the universal mind wants to work with you. The only restriction we create is ourselves. So the easier you're able to let that go, the quicker you're able to let that go, the whole process becomes easier. So this is where the relaxation quality comes in, the sung, where you're transforming your personality and transforming your perception. And you do this by accumulating faith. And the way you accumulate faith is providing yourself evidence in what you're doing. We need external evidence for our ego to accept what we're doing is worthwhile. So this is where partner work comes really handy. And so I went around Mexico when I was in Mexico to random people and to see how this life force would affect them. And there was like the fear response would kick in, like, oh, I'm going to look like an idiot. People are going to think I'm crazy. All these sort of things, thought processes will come in. But that's the restriction that I was creating myself. But I'm like, okay, I'll let that go. I want to find out if this is real or not. Because there's one thing being able to do this in a conditioned, controlled environment where everyone knows the concepts and stuff like that. But another thing, going out into the street with random people who have no idea about this sort of stuff and being able to move them with energy. That's a very beneficial practice, because that gives you feedback to yourself that, okay, you're on the right track. So providing yourself evidence as much as you can is another challenge that you overcome, but you'll have leaps in your training when you're able to do that, because you'll start to realize the restrictions are you creating yourself. Because if there's any sort of doubt in what you're doing, that's a restriction, right? So it's being able to dissolve all that using the relaxation release quality, and then your perception accepts what you're able to see, and you get more deeper into the nature of reality, and it's all about letting go.
Now, you said that initially there was some skepticism and you were sort of like, does this work? And I've often seen that people say that when they've experienced, it's like the matrix, that you've been given the blue pill, the red pill, and your experience to reality changes. So what was it that was that first part that you realized that, wow, this is real?
So I would say it was like, it wasn't like, it was a one particular point where this is real, because I needed constant feedback, and it was more of an evolution. Like it had a bit of a J curve sort of thing, where it came down to it. Okay, now I know this is real, but it's based on my skill level, because some people were easy to move, some people weren't. And it's based on my skill level. And I had to figure out the puzzle on, like, okay, why could I move this person and not that person? And it's, yes, their energy makeup makes a difference. It falls back on me and my skill level.
Sorry, I have to apologize there, Dinesh. We had a little bit of a dropout.
Yeah.
And I just missed the last part.
Right. Sorry, could you repeat the question again? I have a tendency to go off tangent.
That's all right. So we might just move forward. So how has this journey impacted your personal growth, and what rewards have you experienced in life through this?
Oh, wow. This is the biggest one for me. Like it's completely transformed pretty much every aspect of my life. All my relationships have gotten better. The ones that didn't need to be there have kind of gone. Financially, I'm doing much better. But the main thing is the transformations of myself. Who I was before I started this journey and who I am now is completely different. I was very attached to my own identity, let's say. But now that I've able to release that, I'm able to perceive things at a much, much more clear level. You're able to see the causation chain of every decision that you make. It gives you the tool to live life at the most efficient way, at a very minimal level. But there's a lot more to explore in this. And I feel I believe that I'm a beginner. I've only scratched the surface. There's a lot more to learn. But my main goal at this stage is to help people get the same transformation that I've had, and in all the different aspects of life. But the main thing is the ease of life that I feel that I didn't before. Everything just falls into place when everything's aligned. When your mind, your astral, and your physical is aligned to your true nature and your purpose, then everything falls into place.
What connection is there between the internal martial arts and life force energy? Because we've seen that if in traditional Chinese medicine, they talk about qi and energy, but there's also this link to martial arts.
Yeah, so like traditionally, I can't really. I mean, I've practiced many different things, but like I'm going to talk about the principles that's worked for me. So the main thing that the difference is traditionally they get you to practice a form or some sort of standing practice, and then they say eventually you will feel chi or something will happen, but that's not the case because the mind is contracted into the body. We have to release the mind outside of the body because the mind is not regulated by space. It can have infinite amount of space. So that then you'll open your awareness to life force. Once you open your awareness to life force, then you understand the nature of life force and how it animates everything. And then you just put it into the power, the positions that you want it. So the way I do it is not through any traditional martial arts as such. It's something that I can pressure test. So right now, currently I'm working on boxing, which is time tested in terms of efficiency for fighting. That's what martial arts essentially is. And I'm seeing, okay, what are the body alignments that I need for transfer of energy efficiently? So where I'm not putting heaps of muscle and body mass into it. So that's one thing that I'm exploring. But the main thing why I'm doing it is to see where the internal principles apply in a real sparring context. And so far, what I've found is the concentration you develop in sparring, you put it into your meditation. The relaxation and the release you develop in meditation, you put it into your sparring. So they feed each other. So essentially, I don't practice martial arts anymore to be a better fighter or anything like that. I no longer have that desire, but it is a very effective way to know where you're at in terms of how you handle chaos. So when you got punches coming at your face, you'll start to, because you've paid attention to all these different layers, you start to pay attention, you'll start to notice that how much the mind contracts. And so if the internal principles you're not able to apply the internal principles in that sort of context, then it doesn't matter, regardless of what martial art that you do, it's not going to work. It's one thing practicing techniques on someone who's, being cooperative and stuff like that. That's fine, but like you have to clearly define why you're practicing martial arts, right? If you're practicing martial arts for a fighting reason, like to be a better fighter or whatever, then you need to clearly identify that and know how to practice internally. And sparring is the only way to do that. If you're not sparring and pressure testing it, then it's theoretical. You're playing with energy, that's fine, but like you got to make sure that you identify that. So where does martial arts come into this? For me, mainly, it's maintaining the internal principles in a sparring context. So that is being able to perceive the person's intention before they intend. So if I can do that, then I can be in the right place in the right position for a counter or just avoid the punch or whatever. So I did this with jiu-jitsu as well. It works. It is easier in jiu-jitsu than it is boxing because the boxing is quite rapid and fast and erratic. But jiu-jitsu is a little bit easier. But my main focus is my ability to cultivate the release concept and all the other internal principles under chaos. Because when I'm able to do it under stress like that, then when I go to do a sitting practice, it's very easy. And I can go into higher states of consciousness and much easier. So that's the main purpose why I'm doing it. It's not to be a better fighter or anything like that. It's an exercise where I'm producing the chaos myself. It's a controlled chaos because chaos is what generates evolution. And it's easy to sit down and relax your mind and stuff like that. But like when you're able to do it under that context, and then when you go to do a sitting practice and meditation, it's a lot more effective and efficient. And you're able to maintain concentration and the release quality a lot easier. So that's why I do it. And that's how I've integrated it. So I don't really focus on the traditional aspects of internal martial arts. I have in the past. It hasn't worked for me. So this is how I'm doing it.
Yep. Awesome. Now, are there any basic practices that you could just share with someone today who would want to just to know how they could feel some life force?
Well, I've got a couple of videos up on building the ball exercise on just YouTube.
And
And
you want to just explain what building the ball is?
okay, building the ball is
Because that is a fundamental exercise, isn't it?
yeah, it's the entry level exercise to bring your awareness to feeling life force outside of your body. So basically, you're able to feel the energy in a ball because energy travels spherical, and you're able to feel that here. So you're not feeling it in your body or in your hands, you're actually feeling it here. And then with that one exercise, unlocks a lot of things, because the principles that are used to feel energy in that one basic exercise, which only takes 15 to half an hour, 15 minutes to half an hour, and you start to discover, okay, how was I able to feel energy here when it's outside of my body? Where am I perceiving this from? All these questions start getting answered. So it's and you get the understanding through the practice, right? And all the principles are in that one exercise, which gets you started. And then you start to go, okay, if I can feel energy here, then I should be able to feel it here. And it's about expanding your mind into the space where you want to feel it. So yeah, if you do that, everything will start clicking into place.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I found that was very good in your course was just the general structural outlines that you gave, and it was very easy to sense that life force initially. Where, as you said, without the structure and those small pointers that you give out,
Yeah.
often you don't really know what you're feeling. And then when I sort of really listened to what you were saying, got into that structure, and really important was to focus myself out of my body. Because once upon a time, it was all about the focus of how your hands feel or how your arms feel. And then I understood now where you were saying taking your awareness out of your body, and then that literally you forget about yourself and you can actually concentrate on the energy.
Exactly. So the whole concept is expanded consciousness, and you expand your consciousness outside of yourself first, and then you get access to life force, and you keep going up the vibrational scale, and then you get higher states of consciousness. So it's a very simple thing, but we've just never been directed that way, because we think that everything's happening within the physical body, but it's not, because the mind is vast. Once we understand that, then everything starts to fall into place.
And when we start to feel this life force energy, it's of a certain type of substance. And then you're saying that there becomes a first transformation and that substance changes. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Okay, so when you start to feel life force, initially you'll feel the raw power of it. There's no intention behind it. You're just becoming aware of what's around in your energy field. And then you add the relaxation quality to it, it starts to alchemically change it and starts to refine it. It'll become more silky. And you keep doing that, and then you get into astral levels. And this is where you get into the concept of qi, where everything becomes slow and thick and dense. And this is when you see the Tai Chi forms, the way they perform it, it's very super slow. They're basically moving qi around. And you don't have to learn the Tai Chi form to do this, but you know, it's a nice
So
form.
they're doing exactly what we're doing, building the ball, but doing it in a form.
In a form, yes. But if you practice like the form initially, your mind is going to contract onto the form, and where like, oh, what's my knee alignment? What's my hip alignment? And you're not going to, your awareness is more in the physical body itself than the energy. So the more efficient way is to pay attention to energy outside of form first, and then you put it into your form, and then the energy will correct your form. So you don't have to, the energy becomes your teacher, because the energy won't lie. So that's, excuse me, that's the easiest way to do this. So once you become aware to energy, just give me some water.
That's all right.
Yeah, once you become aware of energy, then the energy directs what the form's supposed to be like. And yeah, it becomes easy. And then whatever form you practice become more efficient. So whether it's like say boxing, kickboxing, that sort of stuff, or any sort of traditional, because I've done Silat in the past as well. So I put it into that, and it just corrects my form and the efficiency of how the energy conducts through the body and through the ground. The main thing is become more and more aware of life force. So it's the first layer, and then it gets you deeper and deeper awareness. So essentially, we're expanding our perception here. The more you're able to perceive, the bigger picture you have. The bigger picture you have, the easier the puzzle is to solve.
And it just becomes becoming more in touch with those life force energies over time. So it becomes as easy as just jumping on that bike and not thinking how to ride the bike.
Exactly. That's essentially what it is. It's just expanding perception, being able to see what we haven't been able to perceive before. It's as simple as that.
Yep. Now, for people that wanted to start their journey into life force energy, where would you suggest that they start?
So first thing I would do is go through the building the ball exercise. So Mark Rossman has done a lot of videos on this as well. I've put up a couple of videos on this on my YouTube and Instagram channels. And it's the main thing is keeping the mind outside of the body. And it's a very simple exercise. Once you're able to feel it, then you'll have a pull to learn more of it. If you have that pull, so I've created the course Life Force Mastery, which has a lot of information that's condensed. And I've tried to simplify it as much as possible where people can get this easily, and how to start applying it and whatnot. With Mark Rossman's course, it's very vast and it's quite advanced. And when I practiced his course, it's because there's no structure to the way he does the course, but there's a lot of information there, which can for a beginner, it can be a bit too much. So I try to cover that aspect and make it more accessible for people to learn, where I've condensed the information and I've structured it, where it's from the feedback I'm getting, people are really enjoying the course. So that's one way you can do it. But there are plenty of videos on YouTube just to find it and feel it and then start applying it. And if that catches your attention, then you'll have the urge to investigate more. So I'd say follow your intuition when it comes to that.
So when it comes to this practice, it's building the ball, the structure and the relaxation, they're fundamentals. You can't skip these steps, can you?
No, because the building the ball teaches you pretty much most of the principles that you apply to more advanced practices. So just like anything else, the stronger the foundation, the easier it is when you go up the vibrational scale. And the more advanced practice becomes more simple. But you need a strong foundation for that. And the strong foundation, when I say strong foundation, it's a clear understanding of the principles and the process on how to practice. That's the main thing. When you keep going back to that as a formula and you go back to the drawing board and journaling is super important. You write down all the things that you did right and all the things that you did wrong. And you keep refining your method and applying the process and applying paying attention to where all the principles are being applied, then the path becomes quite easy. And it's all in the first exercise. The more you do it, the more you'll start to realize, the insight will kick in. It's like, that principle is applying here. Like, for example, when you use the law of polarity, you're able to increase sensitivity. When you use the law of mentalism, which is basically the consciousness, bringing awareness into the space between your hands where you're able to expand it outside of your body, I'm able to feel more energy. So sensitivity to energy is a guideline on how well you're practicing. So if you're able to sense more, then you're doing something right. If the sensitivity decreases, then you're doing something wrong. So use the energy as the teacher. When you're able to feel more energy, your awareness is expanded more into the feeling of life force and up the vibrational scale. So the energy becomes a teacher.
And is this when people like Mark become so high level at their expanding their awareness that they can actually expand their awareness while you're in their field, and while you're getting these often strange physical effects?
Yeah. So after a certain level of practice, you actually lose your awareness of the physical body itself. So when I'm doing the more meditative practices, my physical body feels like this couch to me. It's outside of myself because my awareness is somewhere else. I know it's there, but I no longer feel a part of it. That's one of the experiences that I feel. People might feel it differently. So this is when your mind is so released that the physical body is no longer a hindrance. Because the biggest hindrance we have is one, the physical body. That's why we have to make it strong and vital and radiant. And the other main resistance that we have is our astral body, which is our identity. It's when you start to let go of your identity, then you get into these higher states of consciousness. And you have insights and like various other practices on how you can use that into your life, because there's no point just having an expanded consciousness and not being able to do anything with it. So you got to make sure that when you practice, it's efficient. So if I'm doing an hour of meditation, that hour should account for something. There's no point just sitting for an hour and blissing out. I mean, it feels nice, but like, you know, we're very limited in time when it comes to life. So you have to make sure that everything that you practice. Exactly. Yeah. It's got to be functional. Yeah.
Excellent. So are there any resources that you recommend, books, learning, or even other teachers for people for further study?
Yeah, definitely check out Mark Rossman's stuff. It's the most advanced and the easiest probably to learn this from what I've come across, and I've looked a lot for this sort of stuff. He's got a book. What's it called?
Backdoor into Hermetics.
Yeah, Backdoor into Hermetics. That's a very good book. Franz Bardon's books, Initiation to Hermetics. That's a good starting point as well. Other teachers. He's been my main teacher when it comes to energetics and metaphysics. So that I would recommend him. And like his students as well. Some of his students are doing really good things. So if you have access to some of his students, then I'll go see them, because I would highly recommend, because they've gone through the practice, especially if they've done the teacher's course. I would recommend them as well. Apart from that, that's pretty much the resource that I use.
Recommend everybody that if they can't get in touch with the teacher, I recommend to jump into your Lifeforce Mastery course. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely fantastic. It's great value. You'll own the course for life. And I've gone through it multiple times, and I'm still learning from it. And I found from your initial teachings in that course, I've been able to understand a lot of Sifu Mark's teachings a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to just thank you for that. And definitely recommend checking out Dinesh's course, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for your time today, Dinesh. And I just want to finish off by saying, is there anything that you'd like to share, some insights, knowledge, or anything you'd like to add?
So the main thing for the students or practitioners on this path, the main thing I would focus on is always go to the principles, the process, and the key is letting go. And if you surrender yourself to the path, then it becomes easy. But when you're fighting it, that's when it becomes hard. And that's been my biggest challenge when it comes to this this work. It's all about my perception, and my identity is what was restricting me from understanding more of what reality is. So as soon as you let that go, the easier everything becomes. So follow the process and the principles, and everything will fall into place. That's always go back to that.
Because you can't follow logic in this path, can you?
Well, not necessarily. Like you need logic as well. You need to balance the intellect and the intuition, because the intuition is a product of the spirit, and it gives you information that may not be true. Like it may not be relevant for you in this time. That's where we have the intellect to protect us from making mistakes in decisions. So you always have to balance the intellectual and the intuitive aspect. So when you're practicing, it has to make logical sense. You have to understand how you're practicing. Otherwise, you're not going to get the results quickly. So, but then intuitively, it has to make sense as well. So it's balancing these two is what creates success. So you don't throw the logic. We have logic for a reason. We want to bring that in as much as possible. But when you're practicing, you can't be thinking. This is not a process of thinking.
Logic must be balanced with the experience of feeling.
Yes. So the logic comes in when you are looking at what experience did you have. So after the practice, you have to bring the intellect in then. But when you're actually practicing, you have to let that go. So you're absolutely right there. But you do need it when you come back to form. When you come back to the normal awareness, you're like, okay, what did I just experience? How do I reproduce it? And what use is it? You know, so this is where the intellect comes in, and it keeps you safe and it keeps you true. So you want to become smarter on how you practice, and the understanding comes through after you've gone through your meditative practice or standing practice or whatever you may be doing. You want to make sure that intellectually it makes sense as well, as much as possible. And the easiest way to do this is trying to explain this to someone else. So if you teach it to someone else, for example, you start building the ball, and once you understand, once you can feel it, then try and present this to someone else. Then you'll know how the causation chain works, and you get the insight. Because when you're trying to give this information to someone else, you get a better understanding. It's a principle. If you want to learn something, teach it. So,
You know, even when we're teaching people, this is a sort of minor transmission, isn't it?
it
Of
is.
allowing them to feel, to point to the direction of what they need to be feeling.
Exactly. So you're learning the transmission skill pretty much right from the start, because your mind has felt it. It's easier for you to get someone else to feel it, because you can direct their mind on what they need to be paying attention to. So, and you'll know how to articulate the words of, okay, the body mechanics of this, the astral mechanics of this, mental mechanics of this, and then some people will get it like that. Other people may take a little bit longer, depending on the sensitivity. But again, if you go back to the principle and process, you can't fail. Make this scientific. Take any sort of mysticism out of it. Understand how you're practicing. That's key. And being able to reproduce it and test it, that's key. So if you're a scientist on the path, then you can't fail. But if you're attached to viewpoints and you have a bias towards philosophy or whatever, that restricts you, because that's an identity that you're creating for yourself. You know, it's all about letting go. We're trying to uncover the nature of reality. And the best way to do that is the scientific process of being able to test and give yourself evidence. And that's the quickest part that I've found. So again, follow the process and the principles.
Thank you. And where can people find you on the internet?
So I'm still yet to complete my website. It's the urbansage.org, but the course is on lifeforcemastery.org, which is finished. That's accessible. The course is completed. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of things at the moment, a lot of different projects. So the urbansage.org and lifeforcemastery.org. And I've got the YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook channels as well.
Awesome. So they can go to your website, the website there, and they'll be able to find links to check out your YouTube videos. And I'll also put links in the description so people can find you a lot more easily. Thank you so much for your time today, Dinesh. And I'd love to have you back and dive a little bit deeper into things like the Hermetic practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I encourage everybody to check out Dinesh's site, have a look through those videos, and especially the very first one, which he gives out for free, which is building the ball. And it's a fundamental practice, and it'll really blow you away when you put all those little points together and start to actually feel what life force is. So thanks everybody for your time with Dinesh and I, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.